this guy just a smidge right about there. That's good. All right, got some more pineapples going, right, monkey? Yeah. Are you ready? Are you ready, Freddy? Are you ready, Freddy? Here we go. There it is. Hello. It's Friday, everybody. Aren't you excited that it's Friday? Yeah, another hype date that went right on by. Don't worry, there's another hype date coming on Monday. Woo! And then the one after that will be Tuesday, and then I don't know when after that. So, sure, somebody will come up with one. They always do, right? That being said, a former U.S. military general decided that it was a good idea to post a message on Facebook about how in 1935 Hitler called in all the military leadership for the whole of Germany to one spot, where they were then told that their loyalty oath to the Weimar Republic was null and void, and that they now had to pledge their allegiance and loyalty to Hitler. And the generals who refused to do that were executed, and the generals who agreed to pledge their loyalty to Hitler were then later executed after the war. In response to that, Secretary of Defense P. Hegseth subtweeted that story and wrote, "Cool story, General." Basically implying to everybody that he is calling in all of these heads of the military, every general and admiral in all the military branches of service, to one place so that he can demand their loyalty to Trump. That's basically what he was implying with that. His official statement is that it's going to be a pep rally to get our fighting forces ready and to talk about grooming standards. Yes, we're going to call in the leadership of every apparatus in the entire armed forces so Pete Hegseth can talk to them about grooming standards. Right? Fucking. And the problem is that, you know, the news media just prints that as if that's what the meeting's about. That's literally, this could have been an email type thing. You know, grooming standards. Sideburns cannot go lower than the cleft of the ear. No mustaches, beards, must be clean shaven. No hair over 1 inch long. That's an email. It's not like, let's bring in all the leadership. Listen, boys, I know you just flew in from a war zone, and you just flew in from the, 7th Naval Fleet, and you just flew in from. I need you guys to understand that I need our soldiers a little more clean shaven than they were. Am I making myself clear? No, you don't call in the entire leadership structure of the military to tell them about grooming standards. You bring them in because you want them to be loyal to the president, and you want them to go to war with the citizenry of the United States, and you want to be able to cull anyone who's not okay with that. That's why you bring in all the brass. And then you'll find the captains and colonels who will swear their allegiance to you, and you replace those generals and admirals with those folks. That's what it's all about. So keep your eyes tuned, peeled, ears tuned. I don't know. Tune your bones, man. Yeah. So Mariners won again last night. Woo! No Cal Raleigh home runs. Aw. So we got 4 games left, Monkey, for him to hit 3 home runs and set the record. So we got. Okay. She's like, yes, that's it. What we got. So, what's on your minds? Hit up ye old box of chat, and we will splat. Bing.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Houston, we have a problem.
Okay, turn that off. Okay, it's off. I think I got him. Okay. Lyco Crypto, boogie. Yeah. Boogie. And you're first. Kelly Reed, happy birthday, W. Trump 100% pharmaceutical prices. Wait. Trump, happy birthday, HW. Trump 100% pharmaceutical prices. Good cause. We Canadians need more Tylenol from the migraine we're getting from the U.S. Not quite sure. I think I understand the second part. First part, sure. JL 2023. It's almost like Ryan Cohn is using people. Another hype date without anything meaningful happening. And the price. Where did we end up today? Come on. Bing. 26.42. So we got Max Payne pretty much on the nose. It was at $26 last night, $26 today. So yeah, we hit Max Payne. All the market makers are happy. 2.4 million shares went in the money. Not enough to really jazz up the gamma for next week. So we're going to be hoping for FOMO next week. I won't be participating in the FOMO because what I want are the warrants themselves. So I'm saving my ammunition for when the warrants are issued and on the market. And I'm just going to straight up buy up warrants. To make sure the shorts don't get them. And I can buy more warrants than I can shares. So if I buy 100 shares, let's say this week or next week, it gets me 10 warrants. So it gets me essentially 110 shares, more or less. I could use that money and I could buy 400 or 500 warrants, which essentially gives me the equivalent. If there's a zoom in the stock price, gives me the equivalent of 400 or 500 shares. So I'm going to buy the warrants instead. And see what happens from there. But you guys do what you do. Kelly Reid, Elon Musk and Prince Andrew listed on the new Epstein files. Anyone surprised? Also, it released the whole list. Come on, guys. Yeah, Elon Musk claimed he never had any contact with Epstein, but apparently, according to these files, he was slated to go to Epstein Island. It is said that Kimball Musk's wife was procured for him by Ghislaine Maxwell. It looks like what Epstein's job was. Whoever he may have been working for. People were saying Mossad, people saying it's just blackmail scheme, mafia, whatever. It seemed that if there was an up-and-comer in the nouveau riche money scheme, meaning tech gurus, market guys, whatever. If those folks were up and coming, Epstein somehow got their number, got in contact with them, and offered a play date. Hey, why don't we have dinner together? Hey, why don't you come over to my island for a weekend? We'll discuss whatever this thing is that interests you. And he would get them on board that way. And also in these filings were emails being released. And there's quite a few people who in the emails were fully aware of what Epstein was doing and offering to help him anyway. There was a neuroscientist at Harvard at the time who was like, hey man, why are we busting you for your peccadillos? We all know about that. I'm going to help you out any way I can. Who knows? Who now works, I think, for UCLA doing similar work. Just get all the names out there so we can just blackball every human being involved. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. Begone. There'll be somebody else who can fill the vacuum. None of you are so important that you can't be replaced. Not a single one of you. You will get replaced and history will pay no mind to your legacy and you'll just be gone. And I'm okay with that. So yeah. Prince Andrew, Peter Thiel, Epstein, they are all over that thing. Stuff got released about Princess Fergie, about how she, chastised Epstein in public, and then wrote him emails like, "I am so sorry. You're the greatest ever. I love you so much." So yeah, they're dirtbags, two-faced dirtbags are all over the place. So get rid of them all. I'm okay with that. Belgian Whale. Hey, did you miss me? Night shift today, so here I am. Woo! Belgian Whale's in the house. So far, so after Trump, they're going to have to fire half of law enforcement higher-ups. Yep. If you want a government job, just wait until the next administration. There'll be plenty of hirings happening in the next administration because we've basically destroyed the apparatus of the federal government. There's going to be a whole bunch of folks who were hired on to law enforcement, federal law enforcement, who are not going to pass the requirements that will be in place when the next administration comes in. They're going to have to clean house in a way that Doge wish they could. There's going to be probably internal auditors who will go through and discover all the illegal stuff these guys did, and that will be the reason to fire them. Like, hey, that guy was breaking the law a whole bunch when he was at ICE, or this guy was at FBI. We're going to fire you on those grounds. Here's the irrefutable evidence, and if you don't agree to get fired, we're going to charge you with crimes. And that's probably how they're going to do it. Some of the more nefarious ones who gave the orders, they will hopefully be charged with crimes. But those underlings, those lower level guys who just sort of carry out the orders, my guess is they'll probably be offered, you can be fired or you can be arrested. Pick one. And if they go, I'm going to fight this, then you're just going to be arrested and charged. That's usually how the government does it. That's how they do it oftentimes in the military. You can be like, well, you can resign or we can court-martial you. What do you want? They do that a lot. Can I read reports coming out that Russia is helping China invade Taiwan? Russia be like, invade another country. This is how it's done. China, thanks. We definitely will not do it that way. Yeah. I would not take military advice from the Russians. If they do not have the overwhelming superiority, meaning we're going to bomb somebody who can't shoot our planes down, then they can do all right. Like, their tanks work if you're up against a bunch of farmers with at best some rifles. You can blast them all day with tanks. But if you have anyone who has somewhat equal firepower, you're going to at best stalemate. And right now it looks like Russia is starting to cave pretty fast with the offensive going on in eastern Ukraine. And the fact that Russia doesn't have any fuel left. People are like, but they got all this oil. They have lots of oil, but the infrastructure to turn that oil into actual fuel, into diesel and gasoline and kerosene and stuff like that, has been just obliterated. It's been beyond decimated. Decimated means removing 1/10. They've removed about 25 to 30% of all the production capacity of all the refineries in Russia. Not only that, but they've been bombing the pipelines, which is where a lot of the storage happens. There are storage facilities and tanks, they bomb those too, but the pipelines where they pump it all is where they store actually a lot of their oil and refined fuels. And they've been hitting the gas stations themselves. They've been hitting the fuel trucks. They've been hitting the trains that transport the fuel. And so now an oblast all over Russia, they're running out of gasoline. Not only that, but you have a winter blend and you have a summer blend of diesel fuel. Ideally, if you were to live in a place that has a nice or temperate climate, you're just going to be on summer blend of diesel fuel all the time. But summer blend diesel fuel doesn't work very well in the wintertime because it gets very viscous when it gets cold outside. So you need a winter blend of that fuel that sort of acts like an antifreeze and keeps it from getting gelatinous. And Russia has not produced any winter diesel blend fuel, meaning they're going to be stuck using summer blend fuel in the frigid, cold Siberian winters, and their trucks won't work. Their tanks won't work. Nothing will work. So Ukraine specifically targeting all of these fuel-related places has been an absolute coup for them. So Russia's going to tell China how to invade Taiwan, and Taiwan's just looking at what was done by Ukraine and going, oh, hit their fuel lines. Okay. So, yeah. Belgian Whale, I'm going to renovate a house with a friend. If the timing works out, I'll have enough money next summer to exercise all my warrants. Yes. Do it. Hazel A is there. Hi there. Frozen Day Productions. Have you looked into Mrs. Kirk? She has been in multiple Trump beauty pageants. She was a Christian missionary in Romania in an area known for missing children. I'm not saying she did anything. Well, apparently the Romanian government asked her charity to leave. And she was married once before to a Romanian who was kind of sketchy, I guess. Here's an interesting thing about Charlie Kirk is he famously went after Taylor Swift for being an unmarried woman in her 30s. And his famous posting and speeches about this crap was about how women in their 30s are like over the hill. You know, they're like spent and used up, and they can't find any quality men. There just aren't any high quality men left who are interested in women in their 30s. And then Kirk married a divorcee who's in her 30s and older than him. Was Kirk basically admitting that he was a low quality male, if that's the case? I wouldn't doubt if his wife was there to keep her eye on him. That she was probably a honeypot. And that's the feeling I got from sort of reading up on the history, that she went for a job interview and was like, I'm not here for a job, I'm here to date you. And Charlie Kirk was like, oh my God, boner. And that's that's how it went. You know, if you're selling merch at your husband's funeral, yeah. She's already a millionaire at that point. You know, this is a guy that doesn't believe women should have leadership positions, that they shouldn't be running companies, they should be home, taking care of babies. And yet he married a boss lady, right? She's a CEO, running companies, running missionaries, also making millions of dollars. And she's supposed to be like at home with the kids. Yeah, right, dude. Now she's CEO of the company that women shouldn't be running anything. Have you guys ever watch Handmaid's Tale? The first season of it. What's that lady's name? She was the one that was in Chuck, that plays the evil wife. But she was like the brainchild behind this whole women need to be in the kitchen getting pregnant, taking care of their husbands thing. She had all these books published. And then she finally got what she asked for, what she dreamed for. And there's the whole scene, like her watching people like pack up all of her books and burn them. And her like no longer being a think tank person, no longer giving speeches to crowds, because she now has to actually do what she's been preaching. And she's like, oh, like it's like the you know, Latinos for Trump discovering their family members or themselves getting deported. It's like, dude, who do you think was going to be the ones deported? It's not going to be the white guy with blue eyes, I'll tell you that much. It's going to be you brown skin. They can identify you from a mile away. So careful what you wish for in that instance. Forward ZZ9, there's hoping that this weekend is this weekend? It is this weekend. That's what this weekend is. It's this weekend. Peachy Sunday. Happy birthday, Houston. Can the fake market makers create fake warrants? That has been debated. I think they're going to try it. I do. I think what you're going to get is fake warrants in your accounts for a lot of folks. You won't know they're fake. And when it comes time to exercise, they'll just exercise the first ones that come through to GameStop, who's you know, those shares are coming from their treasury, right? And when they get past the 59 million or so shares, and you go to execute or exercise, that broker is going to have to go out in the market and buy the share, probably with the money from whoever is responsible for that short. And that's how they're going to hope they're going to get away with it. It's not how it should work, but my guess is that's how it's probably going to work, because they're a bunch of shady fuckers. Hot Pocket Rebel. If you think Tylenol is bad for kids, just wait until you hear what the president and his best friend did. Yeah. I mean, you have a heroin addict with a brain worm who convinced his wife to commit suicide and raped his kid's babysitter. And he's telling you what's healthy for your babies. That's what you got. The dude probably never washed his hands before he ate a meal or went to the bathroom his entire life. He claims heroin resulted in him being a much better student at Harvard. And all of his Harvard classmates were like, if he showed up to class, he was asleep the entire time. So yeah, I don't have much faith in those guys. Wormfall, happy birthday, Ethan. Science question for you. If you wanted to keep the sun frozen in the same spot in the sky while flying, how fast and what latitude would you need to travel? That depends on the latitudes. So the Earth rotates at the equator at around 1,000 miles an hour, right? It's like 24,000 something miles around, and there's 24 hours in a day. So if you wanted to keep the sun frozen in one spot, you basically travel against the rotation of the Earth at about 1,000 miles an hour, give or take, at the equator. Now, that speed over land is different. It gets slower and slower and slower and slower the more you move up the latitude, or sorry, go north or south from the equator. So I'm in Seattle at 48 degrees north. It's probably about 600 miles an hour or so here you have to travel. And then if you are, if it's summertime for you in the, say, the Northern Hemisphere, you just go to the North Pole and you can just slowly face the sun and have it frozen in the same spot, which is a simple stepper motor could do that. It's basically 0 miles an hour because you're just standing on one point rotating yourself. So it'd be just angular spin at that point. But yeah, at the equator, about 1,000 miles an hour. I got an argument with my quantum mechanics professor, Norman Purves as we called him. And he was talking about back in the early 2000s, the Niels Bohr Institute had managed to basically teleport, I think it was a hydrogen atom. A very simple hydrogen atom. And he's like, teleportation's coming. It's the future. It's going to be like Star Trek. And it's like, no, it's not. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, it's you're not going to be able to do it. You might be able to do it with like inert objects because they don't need to conserve all their energy to go through these things. But if you're going to transport me, a human being, you have to conserve every aspect of every instance of energy in my entire body. Otherwise, I pop out on the other side with a fresh, clean slate brain and no memories, right? Which doesn't do anyone any good. And so if you're going to maintain all that, you have to maintain momentum, inertia, electrical energy inside the brain and the body, keeping the heart going, all that stuff. And if you're going to do that, you have to maintain everything, which means you'd only be able to teleport to equal latitudes on the planet. Because like in Star Trek, you'll see like, we're going to beam down to the surface, right? Well, they're in orbit of that planet. And if they're in orbit of that planet, they're doing like 17,000, 20,000 miles an hour, and they're beaming down to the surface of a planet that might be rotating at 500 miles an hour, they are going to either come out of that machine at 16,500 miles an hour and smack into something, or they're going to have that thing smack into them at the equivalent of 16,500 miles an hour, because you have to maintain that momentum. Vice versa. You beam from the planet surface up to the Starship Enterprise, and all of a sudden that ship just turns you into mist as you go into that transporter room. The G-forces involved would be insane. So we got an argument about this for like an hour and a half in our quantum mechanics course, and actually didn't even accomplish what any of the lessons were. And I think I finally won in the end. He was like, God damn it. He's like, he had no argument against that. He's like, you're right. So we might be able to transport objects, maybe, a desk that doesn't care if it maintains memories or not. Because you'd be able to remove some of the energy equations involved in there. But not a human being. You wouldn't be able to do it with us. Like if I'd be able to basically, I might have like a 10-15 mile window, maybe, so that the Coriolis force wouldn't fuck me up beaming somewhere. So I could beam, if we bring up Google Earth here. Oh, where are you, Google Earth? There you are. Boink, Earth, boom. All right, yeah, we're gonna leave the oldest rock on Bainbridge Island right there. Exit Street View. Okay. Okay, so come on, give me north. All right, so we got this planet here. This is the old planet Earth. I might be able to beam. I'm at 4730 north right here. So I could beam to, say, 4730 north somewhere in Europe, right? So 4730 north is 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. I could beam to this spot right here in France, which is... What town is this? I could probably beam to whatever little... Etron-sur-Nohon. right here. I could beam to this town. It'd be totally fine, right? Because we got the exact same angular momentum going on. I might be able to beam somewhere to the south. Let's say I go to 47 whatever south. So I think the only place I could probably do that is maybe New Zealand or South America. So let's see here. Where's 47 south? 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. So I could go here. 4711, 4730. So I could go to this spot right there. What are you? Out here in the desert in Argentina. You are some spot on the road. I could beam to this guy. This rock. That rock right there. That little plug of igneous material. I could beam to that guy and probably be just fine. But if I were to beam to the equator, there'd be a 400 mile an hour difference, and it'd be like getting hit by a jet plane. It just wouldn't work because they're rotating at 600 miles an hour here, but they're rotating at 1,000 miles an hour here. So that's just not going to work out. Yeah. So I think I'll be distracted from the whole talk about keeping the sun in one spot. But you can also keep the sun in one spot if you go fast enough along the shadow line. I think I may have told this story a couple of years ago. In 2015, I had my TV show pilot I made. I got my agent at the Banff Media Festival, and then starting the next week, she started flying me down to LA. Like I would fly down early, like 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So I'd get done with work. I'd go to Seattle. I'd sleep in the airport from about, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. I board the plane. I'd fly down to LA. I'd drive around LA and have a bunch of meetings all day. And then that evening I'd hop on a plane in Burbank and then fly back home. And one of those days was on the summer solstice and right at sunset. So I'm down here in Burbank. At the Burbank Airport, which is, where are you, Burbank Airport? You're somewhere in here. Burbank. There it is, Burbank Airport. So hello, Burbank Airport. By this airport here, and we're just taxiing down the runway, and there's a dude who's next to me, and he's in the window seat. And I tell him, it's right at sunset. So the sun is just hanging off over in the west, just hovering above like the mountains. And I'm like, hey man, we're going to fly for the next 2.5 hours to Seattle. And over those 2.5 hours, I'm not going to let the sun set. And he was like, who's this crazy person? I'm like, you can look out that window for the next 2.5 hours and the sun's going to stay right there. It's not going to set. This guy's like, what the fuck is this weird guy doing? And we take off and we're flying north. And what he doesn't know is that sunset in LA was like 7:30, but sunset in Seattle was like 9:50 in the evening. Right? Because there's this curve of shadow that's approaching the northwest. And as we fly north, going north like this, we are hugging that shadow line the entire way. And we fly for the next 2.5 hours. We're flying to Seattle. And I see this dude look out the window. Actually, he's looking that way. Looking out the window, and then he'd look at me. And then he'd look out the window, and he'd look at me. And the sun just wasn't moving. It was just sitting there the entire 2.5 hour trip, all the way to Seattle. And we landed, and the sun was just barely above the Olympic Mountains. And I told him, I was like, look out the window, I'm with the sunset now. And it goes, bloop. And he was just like, what the fuck? And I hope, to this day, that guy tells stories about how he sat next to a wizard on an Alaska Airlines flight from Burbank to Seattle. Because I kept the sun in one spot the entire time. Just by doing that. So if you get it right, and you're flying fast enough along that shadow line, you don't need to go 1,000 miles an hour along the equator. You can keep it hanging right there above the horizon. So there you go. All right. Regular. Okay, no double intro. Logic Dustbin throwing in some super chat. I just had dental surgery. The doc gave me Tylenol 3. Did he just give me 3 autisms? Yes. You now need to go buy a slot car set and a train set and figure out which one you like more. And if it's neither, then you got to get a metal detector. Sorry, I don't make the rules. That's just the way it is. Wormfall. Also, how do you know so much about so many things? I listen to you in awe and realize you know little. I read the almanac every year and memorize it. And I don't have a photographic memory, like eidetic memory. I just have a pretty darn good memory. And it goes back. So I can remember like lessons I had in kindergarten and first grade, and then I find out that people don't have any memories of kindergarten or first grade, and it blows my mind. I remember back to like playing with the tape on my diapers and being in a crib. I have very clear memories of that. So maybe it's just the way my brain works. 'Cause I think a lot of people get presented with information, they just don't have the filing system to be able to pull it up. And I fail sometimes. Like especially talking about like celebrities, their names just don't come to my head really fast. I know exactly who I'm talking about, and it takes a while for like to shuffle through the file folders and like pull the name out. And so that's I guess, you know, I don't know. I just remember stuff. I remember I seldom took notes in college. The only time I took notes was when it came to mathematical equations, because my calculexia, I do flip numbers a lot. I had to write it down because my brain would flip things and I would get out of order. So when it was like math and physics, I actually wrote notes. But every other class, no, I never wrote notes. I had a biogeography class with Dr. Jim Juvick, who was the best professor I had ever. Jim Juvick is awesome. He went to Harvard when he was like 16. He was a world-renowned reptile expert when he was a child, and they would fly him. He lived in a farm out by Sacramento, an apple orchard by Sacramento, and he collected lizards and reptiles and stuff. And he was like, 12 years old. And if some weird animal showed up at the Port of Long Beach, they would put him on a helicopter, fly him to the Port of Long Beach to go find the snake or the spider or whatever and capture it. And he would bring it back to his little zoo he made. And he went to Harvard when he was like 16. Brilliant man, brilliant teacher. He's the one in my climatology course who explained why does it rain over and over and over and over and over and over again every day. And then everyone bombed it because they wrote down why does it rain in their notes and they just could never actually commit it to memory. So in that biogeography class, I had a book, a notebook, and it said biogeography on it and a pencil, and I never wrote anything in it. I sat there and I absorbed the information because he was just this fountain of information, and I'd absorb it, and then he'd give us a test, and I would rock the test. And people talk about like, oh, he's so hard. He's the hardest teacher. No one ever gets an A in his course. I'm like, I'm getting an A. It's fine. It's really easy. I don't know why you guys find this so hard. And then there's a couple of people around me, a couple of like really cute girls by me that sat next to me, and I didn't realize that they were noticing that I was never writing anything down, and but they were like ready to notes furiously. And then one day, Juvick was talking about in situ and ex situ observations, and these are observations like in situ is you are inside of the environment. So like Dr. Jane Goodall, right? Dr. Jane Goodall goes into the jungle, meets these chimps, hangs out with these chimps, and she's doing in situ observations. And there's ex situ where you're an outside observer. And these can be, like clinical trials. You're not experiencing anything with these people. You are double blind. You're just observing whatever results are happening. That could be ex situ. Or studying things from above, remote sensing. That's ex situ observations. And he went through it, and I opened my book for the first time all semester. It's like week 10. And I just wrote in situ, ex situ, and closed the book. And I immediately saw like 8 people around me furiously be like, oh, he should wrote something down, in situ, ex situ, in situ, ex situ. And they just like wrote down oh my God, he actually wrote something down. And that was, I don't know, that was my college experience. There's a dude above me who took even fewer notes, this guy Isaac. Isaac was a physics major, so I had him in a lot of my classes. And Isaac would show up to class with a pencil and a sandwich in his cargo pants. Isaac was definitely on the spectrum. High functioning, really nice guy. And he should not have been at Hilo majoring in physics. He should have been at Caltech doing physics. Like if you're doing astronomy, Hilo, yeah. He should have been at Caltech, should have been at MIT, but he was a local kid from Hilo, and public high schools in Hilo just don't get you into those schools because they're terrible. And he was a certified genius. And the only reason he had a pencil was in case there was a quiz that day. not to take notes or anything. And he would get bored and he'd reach into his pocket, pull out that sandwich, and eat the sandwich. And that was it. He didn't take any notes in those physics classes because he already knew it. He didn't need to be there. He should have just tested out of all of it. He was in my cohort for our senior thesis. And when I presented my senior thesis, people were like, holy fucking shit. This is incredible. You may have just proved what dark energy is. This is awesome. And then Isaac presented his senior thesis where he freshly derived gravity, not using Newton, not using general relativity, but something in between, and nailed it. And I was like, fuck, this dude's way better than I am. Isaac, what was Isaac's last name? I hope he's, one of those guys at Princeton having people feed him. Crap. That kid was so smart. I like it when I meet somebody, I'm in awe of what they can do, and it just rocks my world. I had a friend, Kryn, and Kryn is this badass little 5 foot tall blonde chick. You look at her and you're like, oh, she's some like valley girl. And Kryn never had a formal education. She didn't go to college or anything, but she is a certified welder, ASC certified mechanic. She was a high tension power line repair woman, professional snowboarder, snowcat operator, and she has a mechanical mind that I have never witnessed somebody with an ability to just picture machine parts in her head and then recreate them if need be. Absolutely phenomenal. And like she should have been an engineer. She should have had the opportunity to become an engineer, but she is doing her own thing. She's flying on helicopters, like working on high tension power lines, and then doing snowboard competitions at the X Games or whatever, and living her life, having an awesome time. And when you meet people with unique brains like that, you're like, holy shit. My grandmother on my mom's side, she was eidetic memory. She was perfect. She remembered everything. You could say, hey, Grandmary, what was the score of the Yankees game May 3rd, 1939? And she'd be like, they didn't play that day. But the score on May 2nd, 1939 was, Yankees 4, Red Sox 3. Gehrig went 3 for 4. Ruth went 2 for 4. She would just go through the entire box order. You could take a book. You just take a book and you just go like this and close it. And then you'd say, what the page said. She'd go into her mind and she would read everything that was on that page. Just people like that exist, and it is mind-blowing. And if you have a memory like that, it's not trained. It's not taught to you. It just is. And when she started getting dementia, basically like in her early mid-80s, she didn't know how to do things anymore because she never learned how to learn. She could just close her eyes and bring up whatever the lesson was or the book she read or the newspaper article and just recite that. And she had to learn how to learn in her 80s, and it did not go very well. So there are downfalls to having things like an eidetic memory. I've read about people who have eidetic memories who, because they remember everything is very visceral. And so they get stuck either reliving a horrible event over and over and over again because it's so visceral, and they can smell everything and they can taste it and they can hear it. And so if something bad happens, they're stuck in this loop, reliving this horror over and over again. And other ones who, because they can remember things that are so bad, they go back and relive a happy moment over and over again. There was, what was I listening to? It might have been an NPR show years ago talking about people with eidetic memories. And there was a woman who basically didn't do anything out of fear of having bad moments because she remembered them so vividly. And she would go back to when she was like a teenager at a pool with her cousins. And it was the happiest, most pleasant day of her entire life. And she would just relive that moment over and over and over, trying to extract the dopamine response from that, because anything else could be a possibly terrible memory. So she tried to avoid doing anything else because she had the perfect moment. Why ruin it with living any other way? Thankfully, my grandmother wasn't that way, because I think my grandmother was definitely autistic. and she just kept unplugging. She had kids to raise and whatnot, and so she would selectively call up things rather than be stuck living in that loop. But yeah. So I know I just diverted a far ways from. I like learning, and I remember things pretty easily. So I never really studied. You just teach it to me and go, okay, cool. Maybe get a refresher, but usually not. Yeah. So I don't know how to teach that. That's why when I teach, I try to reward the kids who think that way, and then provide the ability for the kids who don't learn that way to learn it a different way. So like in my math classes, if you get an 80% or better on your quiz, I don't give a shit about your homework. You don't have to do it. I don't care. You obviously know the material. We're good to go. That's all I care about. If you got below an 80% on that quiz, the section for the homework that led up to that quiz, I need it by the end of the term. You got to go back. You got to do it all. Show me that you got it. And that will be how you make up for the poor quiz grade. And it works because the kids who get it, they get it. And they don't need to do all that studying. And they take them to the final, they do just fine. Those kids who bomb all those quizzes, if they got to go back and do 40 homework assignments or whatever, I get this giant stack of homework I got to grade. It takes forever. But you know what? They get the best goddamn grades on that final out of anybody because it's so fresh in their brains. They just, boom, home run. Way better score than anyone else. And they got it. And it works. So, work smarter, not harder. And if you got to work harder, well, the opportunity is there for you too to succeed. And I can't make everyone think the way I do, even though I'd love for that to happen. But yeah. Okay. Okay, where was I? That was Ron Rose. I feel like I'm watching the Darwin Awards. Which Darwin Awards? I've become a curmudgeon. Sick of ball washers. Don't forget to tip the waitress. There you go. Latinum. I just wanted to make sure I have this right. After October 3rd, I can sell calls and still qualify for the warrants, correct? Yeah. You can. You'll get the warrants if you have those shares in your account. And the folks who buy the calls will not get the warrants from you. Because it's dividend. You don't owe people the dividend during call options. So yeah, you can sell calls and you will still get the warrants. So yeah, let's put the date for past October 3rd. Lexington Productions. Thoughts on GME calls for next week? I didn't buy any today. I may play on Monday, or I may just reserve everything I have and just buy the warrants when they come out. I haven't really been wishy-washy on that. I do think there'll be some FOMO going in the next week. Where'd you go? Jimmy Max Payne. Max Payne next week is $25. So at the moment they'll try to push it down, but there's already 23,000 options in the money for next week, which is about the equivalent of this week's, with it being $1 shorter, $1 lower. So I'm sure we'll see Max Payne go up as the week goes on. Be my opinion. So I don't think it will hurt that much if you're playing day to day, looking for the ups on one day, and you reset, you'll probably be okay. And then theta decay won't kill you too much. But if you're buying call options on Monday, you're not doing anything about it until later in the week, the theta decay will probably kill you, and it won't do any good. But if you're out by Tuesday, you'll probably be fine, or at least retain enough of it. But the weeklies are always gambles. You have to be really certain of yourself. And I'm not super certain about the price being in the money by the time the data record hits. I just don't get that in my gut at the moment. Lexington Productions. Any thoughts on Jimmy Call? I just read that one. All right. Alexander K. Happy birthday, Houston. Another day, another dollar. Brendan Wells asking, what's up, BBY? I got nothing. Yeah. Juice Miami super chats. Breaking, the FBI has fired agents photographed kneeling during 2020 racial justice protest. Purge continues. Yeah, they're just going to get rid of everybody. And then they're going to have their little loyalists in there. But the thing is, the loyalists aren't good at their jobs, so it's just going to be terrible. Because you're not... Anyone who's going to say, like, yes, I am loyal to Trump, is already a fucking moron. And they're not going to be able to do anything competently. So, yeah, the purge continues, but they're just going to go about having the worst, dumbest people possible. Like, when fascism first came about, it was a new thing, right? No one knew the consequences of fascism. No one had the history of what happens when you have a fascist authoritarian regime take over. And so, yeah, there were scientists and engineers and people like that who were like, well, we'll try the system. And they got caught up in it. And there were competent people who were part of the apparatus. But in the history since then, right, we know what fascism is about. We know what authoritarian is about. We learn it in school. We learn what's bad about it. We've got the history books. We know exactly what happened. So anyone who's learned, who isn't a complete sociopath or psychopath or narcissist, anyone who's competent at their job is going to look at that and go, I want nothing to do with that. And they're going to just GTFO, right? If they don't get fired, they're just going to leave and be gone. And you're going to distill down, the brain trust into nothing but cronies and loyalists, this like thick little syrup of hatred and goo and incompetence. And that just isn't going to work. You're going to get a fail state. And that's what's going to happen. So they can keep purging. All it means is that the next time we get a new administration, there's going to be so many job openings. Oh my gosh, they're going to have to rebuild the Forest Service, the national parks, the, Border Patrol, the FBI, NSA, fire all the ICE people, like bring about USAID, rebuild the Department of Education. There's going to be so much hiring going on that any of you are going to be able to get a job in that. Trust me. They're going to be desperate for it. So, I just don't know how long it's going to be until we get a new regime. Might be some years. Like I said, Productions, who do you want to see the Mariners play in Division Series? Ooh, that's a good question. Let's look at the AL standings. American League standings right now. All right. Bam, that's not the American League standings. That's a black screen. Let us get boink. Okay, so right now, Mariners are guaranteed. They're in like Flynn. They are leaders of the American League West. They're in the playoffs no matter what. What we have is we've got Blue Jays and Yankees battling over first. So either one of those are going to be first place for the wild card. Next up for wild card will be the Red Sox. And then third place for wild card is going to be a toss-up between whoever comes second in the American League Central and whoever comes second in the American League West. So the Mariners have not had much recent success against the Yankees. In '95, they did really well against the Yankees in the divisional series, but since then have not fared so well. But again, that's 25 years ago, completely different teams, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They've done well against the Blue Jays in recent years. So in 2022, when they broke their long skid of not making the playoffs, they whooped the Blue Jays in the 3-game series. They've not done well against the Guardians historically, or the Indians, as it was. I'll be honest, I kind of hope they either face the Tigers or the Astros, because they just absolutely swept the Astros and just destroyed them. So if the Astros can somehow win a couple of games and get in there, that'd be fantastic. Or the Tigers, because the Tigers are playing real shitty right now. And their starter, Scooble, might have the yips because he just beamed a guy in the face with a 99-mile fastball. And that takes your brain a lot to try and get over that. You may have just ended somebody's career with a pitch like that, and your psyche has a hard time justifying that. So that could take out their number one. and they won another game, so they're only two for their last 10. But the Mariners are the hot ones, and the Guardians are the hot ones right now going league. So I want to avoid the Guardians, and I want to play either the Tigers or the Astros. It's going to be one or the other, I think, going in there. So unless the Guardians lose the next 4 games or something, so it's real tight between those folks. Yeah, Tigers or Astros, in my opinion. Astros overall. I want the Astros to win like a couple extra games, knock the Tigers out, and then we whoop on the Astros in the divisional series. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. Judas Miami, Venezuela gets spicy this weekend. Yes, Trump administration announced that they've got a whole bunch of drug targets inside Venezuela they're going to hit. So basically, we're going to do a war to Venezuela without actually doing a war. So that's cool. Fatal Wraith, okay. Because I said the stream I was updating. And Judas Miami is correcting me, saying it's un momento, gringo. Hey man, I speak Esperanto. Moving Coolhead is first. You're not. Belgian Whale going to hit up some Greek islands next week. That usually means good price action. Let's fucking go. Oh yeah, every time you go on vacation is when we get price action, isn't it? So you can be the bellwether for us on that one. And Honor Glass, where's my Sears warrants? Yeah, Sears. When are you going to give warrants to everybody? King Ding Dong, Riyadh Comedy Festival. I'm surprised. Oh, shoot. Riyadh Comedy Festival just vanished. Where'd you go? Oh, here it is. Riyadh Comedy Festival. I'm surprised that the people going to perform most, Bill Burr and Pete Davidson. I wonder what kind of, money they gave them. Because, for enough money, you'll clean up a set to do whatever you want. Or B, what type of freedom of speech you gave them. I'd be very curious about that. I have a friend, Patricia Somerset. Patricia Somerset, if you play video games, you've heard her voice. She is Zelda in all the recent Zelda games. She's in Rainbow Six and Call of Duty and all sorts of stuff. You look up her IMDb. She, she's a person that gets regular work doing a lot of these voice gigs and some like little side acting gigs. She's a working actress. Where she makes her big money is going to conventions. And so when Saudi Arabia a couple years ago did their first like big Comic-Con, she got, pretty sure, a lot of money from the Saudi government to go and like go to Comic-Con and be someone that could like sign posters and video games and stuff. The Saudis are desperately trying to like sort of poach a lot of big name talent and have them come there, because what they need to do is they need to make themselves a post-oil economy. And they've seen what like UAE has done and Qatar has done, and like, well, we got to kind of do that too, which means opening up a lot more to the rest of the world and getting things to invest in that aren't just oil and gas related. So they've got that whole baseball league, and they're taking a whole bunch of like, past their prime major leaguers. You get Pablo Sandoval and Bartolo Colon and stuff, and paying them a fortune to keep playing professional baseball in these stadiums in Saudi Arabia. And they're not drawing huge crowds. They're doing the same thing with their soccer leagues and their golf leagues and stuff. But it's if you get enough momentum and people watching, and you start to like build up an actual fan base, then you might be able to actually compete with major league versions, Major League Soccer, big FIFA series and stuff like that. But so I have a feeling they're doing the same thing, having big names come in and do these comedy festivals. But they only got to pay so much money. People go, yeah, my integrity is worth that much. Or you're going to have to like give them some leeway you wouldn't give actual Saudi citizens. Seems like quite a gamble to have some shock comics or whatever come in there and just possibly rip MBS a new one and be like, do something about it, right? So, yeah, takes balls. Jockstrap Mishap, it's a good name. H. Jizzo, can GME have unmatched boning Monday? Not Gamma, at least. Not with how many options went in the money. Excuse me. I think FOMO, and FOMO will probably come by Thursday. If you want your shares to be recorded to get the warrants, you have to have your purchase in by Thursday because T+1 means the date of record is gonna be Friday. So Thursday is probably going to be the big day of everyone just last minute buying to get what they can. Just from Dex, I'm here reading your Twitter beef with Serious Revenge. That dude is a certified cult member. It's hilarious. Justin says, Lucky Charms. Sears has done wonderful work when it comes to the Sears bankruptcy and Ideal Lampert, etc. He just gets all of his news sources from websites that if you go to Media Bias Fact Check, you're like, these are not factual and they're far right. And he doesn't know how the U.S. government works. He's telling me that because it was close to change of power time, that the president is no longer in charge of things like the National Guard, that the Speaker of the House is in charge of those things. But the Speaker of the House is never in charge of those things. It's always the president. He's like, well, I expect just the new regime to come in day one and take over. I'm like, that's exactly how it happens. At noon, old guy's out and new guy's in, and whatever the new guy says, that's what happens with the military after that. So, yeah, we're chirping. For me, it's all fun. I love it. Augustine Perales. What do you know about bank insurance fraud from 1933, aka deposit insurance fraud? Nothing. Let's look it up. Bank insurance fraud. What do you call it? Deposit insurance fraud 1933. Oops, 33. Okay, FDIC deposit since 1933. During the Great Depression, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation was created by the Banking Act of 1933 to insure bank deposits, not to prevent fraud. The creation of FDIC was a response to thousands of bank failures during the era, aiming to restore public confidence in the financial system by insuring deposits up to $2,500 per depositor. Term deposit insurance fraud is a modern concept, as the 1933 Act focuses on bank failures and not on fraudulent deposit practices at the time. So all I'm getting out of this is about the FDIC formation. That's all I know. Basically, there are runs on banks happening throughout the Depression and previous depressions before that. So you get, the banks have only so much cash in their vaults. And you come in, you're like, hey, I need to withdraw $1,000. I'm like, oh, sure, because you can buy a car off Craigslist or whatever. They can do little transactions like that. But if all the depositors come in and it's like, hey, I need to withdraw $1,000, the bank doesn't have enough money for the 10,000 clients they have to do that. Because if you watch It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart explains it really well. He's like, your money is in Frank's house because he took out a loan from us, a mortgage, to build his house, and he's paying that money back. I don't have everyone's money all at once. And so these runs on banks would happen. People are like, oh, the bank's out of money. And everyone in town run to the bank, try to pull out all their money they can while they can. And it's happening a lot in China where there's no bank insurance. And then the bank goes under and that's it. Poof, gone. My grandfather, the one that designed houses in Florida, he was very wealthy leading up to the Great Depression. It was a double hit of the hurricane in Miami in 1926 and then the Great Depression. But he literally had millions of dollars in the Bank of Biscayne. And there was a run on the bank, and the bank disappeared, and all his money gone. Nothing. After 1929, he was like hand to mouth with his family. And they were struggling because all the millions he had made designing homes for George Merrick just gone. Poof. And he had to basically start all over again. Which is why, leading up to the start of the war, he took a job as a naval architect at Norfolk and moved the whole family up because it's a guaranteed government job in this depression. That's what I got to do. And he moved the family to Norfolk, Virginia, and was designing basically everything on that giant military base leading up to the war, then through the war. But yeah, I don't know about deposit fraud or any of these other things, but the whole reason why the government started insuring these things was that if there was a run on the bank and the bank went under, people still had their money and weren't just left out in the cold like they are in China, where there's no insurance on those things. So I don't know exactly what you're asking about there, but that's what I got to talk about. Paul Couch. I have GME shares in public. They are giving warrants. They are tradable, and you can exercise them, but they charge $50 to do so. So if you're going to do it, you want to charge all or exercise all of them at once, right? That's basically what you're saying. It's like you don't want to do it piece it out because it's going to cost you a fortune each time to do that. So you make sure you have like a big old bundle of money and you do it all at once. So, word. Oops. So yeah, that's what you got. All right, I'm gonna do like one more, and then I've got to get out of here. Yeah. Freely Wheelie Houston, amazing teleportation story. About 10 years after your professor told you that, they teleported flight MH370 along the same latitude to Diego Garcia, Maldives. Totally. That's why everyone's dead. Man, the amount of energy it would take to like capture a jet traveling at that speed and then transport it somewhere else would be insane. It's like the guys that claim, these hurricanes are getting more powerful because these Doppler radars. When the amount of energy in the hurricane is the equivalent of like 100 years of U.S. energy production. Like, no, a little Doppler radar measuring like pings off of rain droplets is not somehow supercharging a hurricane with the amount of energy it takes to run the whole of the United States for 100 years. That's just not how it works. Same thing with trying to teleport a giant airplane. Seems like it would take energy infrastructure not found in Diego Garcia to do that. So, yeah. Snowboard saying my grandmother ate Tylenol. All right. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday for Hype Day number 522. And we can be pleasantly disappointed together when that happens, or doesn't. It doesn't happen. We'll be pleasantly disappointed. And then if it does happen, we'll be pleasantly surprised. So, all right. Anyway, you guys have a great day. We're going to do old classic. Shaboom.